Hello everyone. Let's do the regular mic check to make sure everything's working properly. I can hear myself, but it's very low. Don't know why. Okay, my volume, I think it's my volume that's, no, I think it's my microphone's volume that's low. Hmm. Let me see if I can do anything about that. This might be how I've been streaming the whole time. I don't know, but whatever. Um, one second while I try and get this to work. I just want to make sure that, sounds the best that it can. And you'd think you could pre-set this up, and you can, but ultimately, sometimes you have to do it on the fly because you set it up and then it just doesn't sound right. Okay, so there's that. And then, wait, where's this mic? Um, hey, what? Oh, okay, here we go. Okay, now let's see if it's any better. Did that change it at all? Or did this change it at all? Not really. Okay, great. Okay, well, I don't know what's going on then. What's confusing to me is that my levels look like they're correct, but they don't sound like they're correct. So, oh, okay, Des says what's going on? We have volume. Okay, Des, so you can hear me. That's good. Um, Hopefully I sound okay volume-wise. It just, I don't know. I was trying to set up a recording earlier today and I had to change some settings. And when I was listening to my voice check, it just sounded very, very, you know, uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Not very strong, I guess. Yeah, very quiet. So I was confused. But okay, it sounds okay on both. Good. Thank you. Appreciate that. So, sorry for the, craziness. Alrighty. Cameras switching over now. There we are. Oh, I have my grid up. Oops. Twitch is quieter, but still not bad. Okay. Well, I mean, they should be the same, but, who knows? These, you know, uh, I don't know. I don't know. I was trying to record something today, and I was having some weird audio issues because I was like the microphone looked like it was peaking, but then the volume was like only going halfway on the computer. So like the mic input and the computer input weren't matching, and I didn't know what was going on. So I was trying to, fix it, or, at least make them match or something. I don't know. And then I thought maybe I messed up one of my settings or something, because when I went in to do my mic check, it just sounded quiet. Anyways, how you doing? Like I said, I was trying to record something. I fingers crossed I'll have a video out, tomorrow or Friday at the latest, because I didn't put one out last week. Yeah, it's just been, I don't know, everything's been busy. So, but yeah, we'll see. Like I said, I would love to put out 2 to 3 videos a week. It's a little over ambitious, honestly, but even a video a week would be, would be great. But even that, I seem to struggle with. I think part of the reason, though, is because, like, if putting out a video a week was bringing in, income, then it'd be a lot easier to dedicate the time to it. Unfortunately, that is not the case, but hopefully eventually it will be. Even if it's indirectly. I never I never have expectations to become like a YouTuber, but more like a marketing tool. I am I don't want to say very confident, but I am semi-confident I can finish this today. We'll see. Maybe that's overambitious, but I mean, if I had, 5 hours to stream, to paint and everything, definitely not. But we'll see. Streaming, I've said before, is exhausting, and by usually after 2 hours, I'm done. And then even when I try to go back to it after the stream, I'm totally wiped and can't really function. Well, we'll see. Part of the, or some of the good aspects of this is that because it's, made up, it's a little looser in the, um, like I can be a little looser with the accuracy of things, I guess. Although the reality is really, that's how you should approach most paintings, I feel like. In an ideal world, you know? All right. The one thing that I am, one thing, one of the things I'm running into is I cannot produce the purples. Wait, is it purples or is it violets? Wait, which one is which? The purples are closer to blue than violets, right? No, the opposite. Violets are closer to. Okay. Now I have to look it up. I can never remember this. This is one of those things that like I cannot remember. Purple versus violet. Which one is which? I can never get it right. Okay, yes. Violet. There's a way of remembering this, but I don't know what it is. Okay, so violet is closer to blue and purple is closer to red. That's not a very accurate, or that's not a very scientific way of phrasing or saying that, but yes. So violet is blue and purple is red. Okay, if I remember correctly, it's the R. So the purple has an R in it and, R for red. Yeah, okay. I try to remember that, but I forget a lot. Okay, so let's see. So yeah, I can't produce the purples, no, the violets that I want. So I might have to use a spot color to create some of those violets. I'm gonna oil out a little here. Yeah, I hate the fact that like it's so frustrating, the violet purple thing. I always forget it. Drives me nuts sometimes. Alrighty. But yeah, I think I'll have to spot treat some of the colors because I just cannot hit some of those colors. And palette's pretty good at it, but still, there are still limitations, to everything. Right. I could, so I have two options. I could use a different red to try and hit those colors, or I could use a different blue, or both. But I also have a just a straight up violet color, and I know I'm looking for purple, not violet, but with a little bit of red added to it, it'll probably be exactly what I'm looking for. So I'll probably end up just doing that because why would I, you know, add a supplemental color just to have to like if I add another blue, let's say, I'm going to have to add the blue and then I'm going to have to still mix the purple. And if I add a red, I'm still going to have to like mix the colors. And I realize if I add the violet, I still might have to adjust the color, but at least I'm not like mixing two colors to get to it. I'm just slightly adjusting the violet, if that makes sense. Or maybe I'm not clear on that. It's tricky. I mean, it always is tricky, but I guess the idea is if I add a blue or a red or both, I'm still going to be mixing those two to try and get to the purple or the violet. It's probably purple, but whereas if I start with the violet, I'm just going to be adding a little bit to it to adjust it, which is just, easier. It's easier both in the sense of like it's easier to get to the color, but it's also it demands less of the pigments, and so it's a lot easier to keep the saturation because that's part of the issue is that this is a purely digital uh, design, and so the colors are all over the top, and they're more than they're saturated. They're way more saturated than you know than my paints. Basically, is the issue. So in order to try and get close to that, I have to use very saturated colors. Problem is that when you use very saturated colors for some things, it just never looks right. Like if you look at old the movies for like the Hulk, and you look at when they tried to do them very saturated and later they toned down the green a lot, it looked a lot more natural. And it's just, which sounds silly, right? Because like, how could a giant, you know, uh, essentially a green giant look natural. But yeah, when the colors weren't overly saturated, it helped a lot. It's not that it ever looked natural, like real to the world, but it looked um, like visually it fit in with the world, so it didn't look as glaring, the CGI, you know. Yeah, I do find that funny how our brains can be like, oh, that's fine, that looks real. Hey, Cassandra, lurking from work. No worries. How are you doing today? Good, just setting stuff up in the lobby. Okay. But yeah, like it's mostly her like different bows, like her bow tie here, here, and here. I just cannot get those colors. And luckily, they're not the most important elements, you know, in her design. At least I don't think. So, you know, it's all right. But still, you know. I saw hair and then it disappeared. I don't know what happened to it. The thing that I find very challenging with stuff like this is that the tendency is to work as it, you know, because it is based off of something digital. And when people design these digital assets and these digital designs, a lot of times the colors, you know, the gradations of the colors are very monotone or mono value. No, not value, hue, I guess. It just goes from light to dark, and there's no shifting of the of the temperature or the hue as it, you know, shifts through these hues. But that's not very accurate to how things usually work in reality. Because usually what happens is you have multiple light sources, and the light source has, and even if you don't have multiple light sources, whatever light source you do have, it has its own temperature. And so as you move through as you move through from light to dark, the temperature changes um, based off of the light and the bounced light and the surroundings too. And then, um, so like things, even if you have the same thing, the same object that's a single color, you can have hue shifts and, which usually means slight temperature shifts as well, and saturation shifts as well. And a lot of times that isn't baked into um, digital assets the same way. So you have to make it up as you do it. So yeah, if you're working from you know, a digital concept, something to keep in mind. Also, something to keep in mind if you're doing digital painting and you want to, you know, set your painting, um, you know, I don't want to say set aside. That's not make it stand out compared to others. You know, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like really good concept artists know this and do this stuff, but you know, that's uh, that's because really good concept artists are just really good painters. You know, usually at least most of them are. Here, yeah, but yeah, you know the color shifts and the hue shifts. Those are the things that add so much interest in paintings. One of my favorite artists, Jennifer Balkin, she she had so much color in her paintings, in the shadows and just everywhere. But it's like the values are right, so it just works. But it adds so much to it. Cassandra says, could say the same for tattoo artists. Oh, well, yeah, for sure. Good tattoo artists. Absolutely. I've met a lot of tattoo artists who do either comic books, illustrations, or paintings as well, or all of the above. But usually they they pick one because there's only so much time in the day. But yes, I've met a ton of artists, tattoo artists and concept artists that all do those things on their free time kind of thing. The number of people who have asked me if I ever wanted to get into tattoos, I have had people ask me that as well. And I've considered it. I don't know that I would have um there's a lot of things that I don't know that I would be suited for tattooing. Cassandra says, no thanks, that's too much pressure. That is part of it. There's quite a few reasons I don't know that I would be interested in tattooing. That says I don't have the steady hand for that work, for line work. So that is a concern that I had as well. I can I'm not sure about it. Like maybe not. Because I've inked and I can do pretty steady inking, but I also sometimes struggle to stay in the lines when like coloring, but it's not the same. So I'm not positive. Um, but I've um, I've talked to people who have gotten in, who are into tattoos, who, I mean, are tattoo artists, and like the whole experience of becoming a tattoo artist is, um, you know, sounds very involved. A lot like you have to apprentice for someone, and most of the time they take advantage of you, and it's shitty. At least that's what I've heard. Um, and just a lot of stuff in that way, and I'm just like, I don't know that I have the the desire to get into this that much. And then the other thing too is, I do question the steady hand thing, although there are tattoo artists who do more like painterly looks, that's popular, and I'm like, maybe I could do that. That might be an option. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's and then the close interfacing with the public in that way, I'm not sure it's for me. Um, you know, it's very hands-on people, and I'm like, hmm, not sure about that. Although, you do get to hurt them, so maybe that's a plus. I don't know. I I also don't know, like the shows I've seen about it, people can get very like emotional about like their tattoos that are very, personal. And I'm just like, that's cool. I'm not going to be able to return that emotion to you. Um, I'm not going to be able to get teary-eyed about this for you. I'm sorry. Um, I can paint it or, tattoo it, I guess, in that instance, but I'm just not going to have that, most of the time. I'm not saying I don't have feelings, I just don't most of the time. Des says, haha, spoken like a true Sith. Yeah, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. Just, I mean, obviously some of that's a joke, but yeah, I don't know. I used to watch the Tattoo Master shows. I like them. Yeah, I watched one of those shows. I can't remember which one it was, but I watched a couple of those shows and I liked them. And, I just, like I said, I don't know. I'm empathetic towards people. There's a difference between I guess maybe sympathy and empathy. So maybe it's sympathetic towards people, but not as empathetic. It's like, okay, that's fine. Whatever, I don't have to feel what you feel to do the thing. I don't know. But yeah, it's fine. I don't know if that's really the way it is in tattoos or not. But there's all the other stuff that that just makes me think that might not be for me. Come on, I know there's paint in there. There we go. I knew it was in there. Um, let's see. Uh, Des says, but I saw an ad on Facebook today for that showed a local tattoo convention. There was only two artists I'd consider good out of about 20 plus. I'm too picky, probably. Probably. I would guess that you probably are too picky, but I get it. I I'm very picky too, so I totally get it. I don't know. I know there's definitely like styles of tattoos that I would not be good at. Um, but that's fine. Not everyone, you don't have to be good at every style. That's okay. Um, I don't know. I guess the other thing is I just don't know how much time it would take to kind of get good at tattooing. And because there's two levels. There's like how good you are as an artist in a kind of general concept way, and then there is like the particular medium that you're trying to, you know, learn. And I don't dismiss how hard it would be to learn to tattoo people, you know. I'm sure it would be very difficult. And I'm sure, a lot of nuance to using the different, the different tattoo guns and the different inks and all of that stuff. I feel like it's the type of thing that to be really good at that, would take years, which makes sense. Don't get me wrong, that makes sense to me. But then that brings up the question of like, okay, well, if it's going to take years to get good at tattooing, and it's going to take years to get good at painting, and I want to paint more than I want to tattoo, why would I spend the time getting good at tattooing? Like the only reason to do it is for money, right? Which I understand. We all need money. I get it. But if it takes years, like the calculations don't entirely make sense to me. At least at least in my logic currently. Like maybe there's something I'm not thinking of, which, could be the case. I just clearly I'm not thinking about it though. So I'm missing something, right? Hey, Michael, welcome. How you doing? Michael says, "Hey, Leod, my son has a tattoo shop. Just got my first tattoo at age of 62. LOL. Nice. I don't have any tattoos. Either. I want one. I always run into the problem of like I don't know what I want, or even if I know what I want, after a few years that changes. You know what I mean? Um, and what I think is good keeps changing. So like, you know, it's hard to like get, to commit to something that I know I'm gonna probably not like later, but yeah, anyways. But that's awesome. How was it? What was the experience like? And how was your son's experience getting into tattooing? Since we're talking about it. And Des says, "Wow, nice. I designed one time and took it to a tattoo artist. He wanted to change it because to him it's supposed to be his art, and he didn't want to do it anyways." Yeah, yeah. Well, that is a problem, right? When art, like as an artist, if you want to get your own design, which is also something I thought about, and also an issue I had because, um, you know, if I design something now, you know, maybe it doesn't apply as much anymore, but back in the day when I would design something, a year or two later, I'd be like, oh God, I'm so glad I didn't get that as a tattoo because now I hate it. Like I said, it doesn't apply as much anymore, but when I was younger, it definitely was the case. I never, I never designed a tattoo for anybody, but I did do a pinup drawing back in the day that someone contacted me asking if they could get it as a tattoo, and I said yes, but they had to send me photos, so they did later, and I'll tell that story in just a second. Um, Michael says it took him a long time to learn it. He has been doing it for 15 years. Yeah, wow. He does what is called old style tattoos. Okay, very cool. Yeah, no, I never doubted that it was a lot of work. Don't, but I do know that there's also like, okay, let me pause this for a second. Um, so how can I phrase this correctly? Most people who get into tattooing, I assume the majority, we'll say the majority, want to be artists as kids and are artists as kids and want to get into tattooing. So their artistic development, if I'm doing a graph, right, their artistic development and their tattooing development, go hand in hand because they're learning those two skills together. Um, but I wouldn't be learning those two skills together, right? So my artistic level's at a certain place and my tattooing skills at a very different place. And I'm not trying to diminish how long it would take to learn that because I do think it would be years. I don't think it would be 15 years at this stage, but I do think it would be years to really get good at tattooing. And I'm sure that there's elements of my artistic skill that would have to be adjusted as well for the medium, but the control of the medium is not, I don't think it's a simple one. I know I know how long it took me to go from digital to oils, and I know that, and I have an idea of how long it would take me to go from, oils to something else like acrylics or gouache, because I messed around with gouache or watercolors. I can see that working, but tattooing, very different. Michael says, I got a Black Panther with a snake wrapped around it. He was very nervous doing it on his father. I bet. I bet he was. I mean, just imagine if he fucked it up, right? Yeah. That says it sounds great. Can you share it in Discord? Oh yeah, absolutely. Share it when you can. I know it takes some time to heal sometimes and so on. Yeah, but yeah, I saw this video. I watched these compilation clips, and I saw this video of a little kid getting his hair cut, and he was getting his bangs cut, and the barber had brushed his hair down super, super straight, super smooth. It looked great. And he was just taking the electric trimmers and he was trimming the front of it. And the kid sneezed right as he put the trimmer down. So it goes straight and then whoop, there's like a shelf. And I could just imagine the same thing happening with a tattoo. You know what I mean? Obviously not in the same place, but just in general, I can totally imagine that happening with a tattoo. At least hair grows back fast, like it's not a problem. It sucks, but it's not a big deal. And I'll be honest, I kind of like the shelf because I was like, just the straight bangs across are kind of boring, but that's just me, you know. But yeah, I know that there's just like there's so much. The thing is there's also when you move mediums, there's an interesting thing where it's like if I move mediums and I go over to gouache because I've used gouache before. Actually, you know what? Let's say not gouache. Let's say acrylics. I've used acrylics too, but it's been so long I don't consider it. Let's say I move over to acrylics, right? There is like the initial level of kind of dealing with it, right? Which would be fine, like hard getting to, getting the, what's it called? The handle of like the drying time, the color shifts, all that stuff. There's like a learning curve. But after that initial learning curve, there's this huge, like, well of depth that every medium has with all this, that it's all the nuances of using a particular medium, sometimes using a particular brand, sometimes using a particular pigment specifically, particular substrate. Like when you really, really start like get like specializing and getting into something, that like depth of it is insane. And I'm sure tattooing is the same way. The different guns, the different needles, the different pigments, the different types of there's probably different fluids that they could be suspended in, different mixtures. And then of course, then you have different skin types, different, uh, you know, just, I'm sure it just continues on from there. So I think it would be probably, you know, just a lot of work, a lot to learn. Hopefully, by the way, Michael, hopefully, or I'm curious if you can share this. What was this experience like getting into tattooing? Because I have heard some really messed up stories about like the process of getting into the industry, you know? Let's see. Des says, have you guys seen the barber on Instagram who has a wheel that kids come in and spin and they have to get permission from their parents? I haven't. The haircuts are horrible, but they have a chance of winning 50 bucks. I haven't seen that, but that's pretty funny. I like that idea though. That's fun. It's a good way of teaching kids about, gambling. By the way, does my sound does my mic sound okay, or does it sound like I'm constantly peaking and blowing out my microphone? But yeah, that's you know, oh my God, I saw this clip of someone of a parent trying to teach their kid about I don't know if they were trying to teach them about gambling or if they were just trying to like if it was just a joke. The kid was really young. I don't know how old, but very, very young. And they were betting with them. Like the kid would what's it called? Um, flick the thing to see if it would land on going to bed, playing more, or getting a snack or something like that. But what they were using wasn't a wheel, it was the spring door stop, right? Which will always go back to center to where it is. And so it was always going to land on going back to bed or going to bed. And the kid couldn't understand why they were losing all the time. And they were trying to, like teach their kid why, but the kid was getting upset. It was pretty funny. Samaj says, this is something new and different from what I've seen you do in the past. I really like the colors. It's always a joy to see how you paint and what things become. Oh, thank you. It is different. This is based off of a VTuber's design, and I'm trying to turn it into something that I would consider, realistic. Obviously, there's a degree of, or a lack of realism to it because of course there is, but the goal is to make it look semi-realistic, I guess, because like I said, there's always going to be a degree of a lack of reality to it just because of the design, right? Um, I would have to, completely change certain elements to make it, actually real. And that would, I feel like, defeat the purpose. But I still want it to look realistic in a way. Um, you know, I my background, I used to want to be a comic book artist, and I've always been into fantasy and stuff like this. Not that this is, high fantasy or anything, but um, I like the idea of combining realism and not realism. Just it's finding the balance of the two is definitely, a process. Let's see. Michael says my son went to art college in Edinburgh, Scotland first, then got taught by an older tattoo guy. But he's always been interested in art. Kind of runs in my family. Nice. Do you have any family in art? Do I? Not really. My Not really. My grandma um So my grandma got into painting at, at one point in her life, um, but much later in life. Like I'm talking like in her 60s or 70s is when she started, I think. Um, and something like that. I'm not entirely sure. Um, she lived to, I think it was 94. Um, so she did it for a while. Um, but you know, I would say very much a like a minor hobby for her. Just not not that you have to be professional to, you know, to take it seriously, but based off of like everything that I know of her, it was very much a like, you know, not the most serious thing to her. Um, and then that's it. Um, a cousin of mine does what's it called? Like he likes a filmmaking and like editing and motion graphics and like 3D effects and stuff like that. Um, but you know, it's not quite the same thing. Um, my other cousin actually married an artist and he's really good, but you know, I even though he's in the family, I don't consider him in the family for these purposes, you know what I mean? For like this discussion purposes. But yeah. Um, Samaj says, all right, I forgot you worked in that world. Yep. Um, I think bringing that back to your style is a serious benefit. It feels like play for you. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And yeah, this definitely does feel like play. The, the 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 reason I even did this painting was because this particular VTuber, she talks about art and AI related stuff a lot. And she was discussing AI, she was discussing artists who use AI, and she got into this whole thing about realist artists. She referred to them as like hyper realists, even though they were not. Most of them weren't what I would consider hyper realists, but you know, whatever. It's just a term thing. But she brought up this point that a lot of people use, you know, use reference, a lot use AI reference, and then a lot of them do the same, like paint the same person almost because they're working from AI and AI spits out the same looking person. But and that's true, but there's also a point to that where it's like, yeah, but a lot of the models that like I paint from, for instance, you know, they're conventionally attractive, and so they a lot of times have features that are also very similar. Not all, obviously, I've painted a lot of different types of people, but it was just one of those things that came up, and I was like, I wonder if I could do something different with this without using AI, because I did not use AI for this, for the record. But I was just like, I wonder what I could do with this. And I thought about doing, you know, I was debating like, who should I paint? What should I paint? And I just decided, oh, I'll just do painting of her model. And the goal was to make it very quick. And it's still the goal is to make it relatively a quick painting. And just have fun with it. And the face is based off of a model, like a reference image that I found, but I'm modifying it a bit to, you know, get the look that I want. And then her costume, I just had to, there was no way I could, you know, there's no way to like put that on the model realistically. So I just painted in Photoshop. I just drew it on top of the photo and just did that. But yeah. Let's see. Michael says, my favorite comic book artist is Bernie Wrightson. What's yours? Ooh, that's a tough one. Bernie is great. Um, I don't know anymore. Honestly, I don't know anymore because there, you know, there are so many good ones, and then there's also like it's one of those things where it's like I like them for different things, you know what I mean? Like there are artists who are better at one thing or another, and I like them for kind of different elements. I know I'm kind of weaseling out of this answer. Um, I recognize that. Um, I I can I'm trying to think. It's really really tough because I haven't read comics in a while. I haven't been keeping up, so I don't know. I really, really don't know. I can tell you some of my biggest influences over the years, but some of them aren't even like, okay, I love Todd McFarlane. I can never pronounce his last name properly. McFarlane. I used to love his art, right? Like I loved uh, his comics growing up. There's a famous Spider-Man comic that I absolutely loved when I was a kid. Um, but now when I look at it, he's actually not my favorite, you know? Like I don't know what it is as I've developed or whatever. He's not actually my favorite. There's a there's an artist, I can't remember his name right now. He did a mini series called Desolation Jones, which I loved. The artwork was phenomenal. But then I saw his stuff in like a Batman comic, and it's not like it was bad. It didn't have whatever he did in Desolation Jones was like super special. And then when he went into, like a company book, it didn't have that magic at the time, you know? So it just kind of depends really, you know. I mean, I can go with some of the classics like uh, Jim Lee. I love Jim Lee's artwork. Um, but I don't know that I would say that he's actually my favorite artist. Um, yeah, that's such a tough one. Um, of course, uh, Mike Mignola, obviously, love him. Um, yeah, shoot. So it's such a hard question. I don't know. I feel like I'm not, like I'm weaseling out of the answer, but I don't know. And then there's also the people who I love the story of them, and I love what they did more than their style. Like I love uh oh Jack Kirby's stuff. I love I love wait, is it Jack Kirby? Yeah. I love him, but I don't love his style that much. But there's so many elements of his art that I love. I just don't like the finish style, I guess. I don't know if that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, not a very satisfying answer. I'm sorry. I know. I don't know that I'd be able to say that, definitively like who's my favorite painter either, though, to be fair. Also, does Frank Frazetta count? Because I don't really know too much about his like I haven't seen a ton of his sequentials because he didn't do a or he those weren't the most successful, but damn his covers are, great. Michael says it's like picking your favorite artist. It changes all the time and it's hard to pick. It really is. It really is. By the way, Samaj, if I didn't ask, I think I forgot. How you doing today? I meant to ask, but I got distracted. But yeah, how are you? And then yeah, I totally agree. It is like picking your favorite. So I'm not going to name artists here. I'm not going to name the artists, but I had this experience where before I went to art school, there was a particular artist who I really liked, right? I was like really into their stuff. And then they did mostly sequentials, but they did covers occasionally, like many do. Um, and then and there was another artist who was there was one artist who was like a big name, and I really liked them. And there was another artist who was also a big name, and I liked them, but they weren't my favorite, you know? Uh, they're just okay. And I'm not naming names on purpose, you know, whatever, because I don't want to, it's not important. But the thing, what happened was I went to art school. And then after like 3 years of art school, roughly, you know, I was hanging out in a comic book store and I saw uh, two issues side by side on the wall. You know how they have them hanging sometimes on the wall. Um, and it was those two artists' cover art, right? And I was looking at them and I was just like, you know, it's so interesting because now when I look at it, having gone to art school and having a much better understanding of everything, the guy who I used to like just felt way more like style over substance, you know? And the other person art felt way more like substance over style kind of thing. And I was just like, oh, that's so interesting. It's amazing how your perspective can change on that stuff, you know, as your understanding changes and everything. But yeah, it's so hard. I mean, like I said, I don't know that I could pick out my favorite painter either, right? Because like, okay, sure, I love John Singer Sargent, right? Like, yeah, but what am I going to really? Am I going to say that like I love John Singer Sargent over, you know, um, I don't know. There's, you know, and then on the reverse, would I really say that I like anybody more than John Singer Sargent? You know, in some ways, I mean, yeah, but in some ways, no. It's really tough. You know, some people are just so good that it's like even if they're not my favorite, I can't not appreciate it, you know, which I don't think is something that like, you know, everyone, I don't think that's something that everyone, that's a feeling that everyone has, but I do think it's a feeling that a lot of artists have. I know I do. Like there's just some people I'm just like, God damn, I don't like this that much, but it's just so damn impressive. Another thing too is, you know, like um, I think I use John Singer Sargent a lot because I can remember his name. But he's so good. But then I've seen some of his paintings where I'm just like, you know, this is really well done, but this is not like him at his best because it's not him at his um like the subject matter just isn't suited for his style. You know, it's just a little it's like you're like, okay, this is really well done, but you know, this probably would have been better in the hands of someone else for this particular one. And that goes for every single artist, you know. And the problem with comic book artists is they don't always get to choose, you know, their what those elements. Oh, there's another comic book artist. I can't remember his name right now. He did the Ultimates. Um, when the Ultimates became a thing in Marvel. And that's the other thing. I know I have a huge gap in my knowledge for certain types of artists because growing up, and there was a long period of time where I could only get Marvel comic books. I couldn't get indie and I couldn't get DC books. I could only get Marvel books. Um, so that was the only thing I had access to. So I know there's a ton of my like comic book art history that, I am missing information there. And the reason for that is because where I lived for a long time, I could not get comic books. There were no comic book shops. I couldn't get them. The only way I could get them was ordering them directly from the, the company. And the only company that was doing that was Marvel. So I know there's a huge knowledge gap too. But if you like gritty, cool, artistic books, check out the first um, Desolation Jones miniseries or graphic novel or whatever it was. Just be aware there's some adult themes in it. If that is not something you like, don't go looking for it. But if that does not offend you, I highly recommend it. And then of course there's, manga artists and so on. I manga artists, one of the things that's so different is that so often there's I think the art is connected to the story and their writing, which, I like the idea that artists get to make their, hold on, I have to take this. Sorry, everyone, I'll be right back. Okay. Sorry about that. Just turning on, quieting my phone. All right. Okay. So I'm trying to build texture in the hair, but her hair is um, not very realistic, obviously. So it's a fun challenge of getting the texture right and also trying to give it volume, but also make it look real in some capacity. And I am going to try and add some, what's it called? Um, oh my God, bounced colors and stuff like that too, to try and, add interest to it. But it has to be subtle too. That was not subtle at all. So let's try and get subtle, but still do it. One of the things I've said before, and there's, it's, I think there's truth to it, but it's also, you don't want to rely on it too much too, is the idea that a lot of times, like when you see these different, when you're looking at something and you see different colors, like in the shadows or in skin, a lot of times it's not actually a different color. It's literally just like a slight change in saturation. Um, but we see things so, um, what's the word I'm looking for? Dependent on context, that we fool, like our eyes fool us all the time. Um, but playing into those, you know, inaccuracies or, um, visual, uh, I don't know, hallucinations or whatever they are, can actually, yield really cool results. So pushing the, even though it's just like, oh, it's slightly more gray, and that's really why it looks like the skin's blue or green. It's like, yeah, that's true. But if you push it more into the green, it can actually be more interesting. So, you know, it just depends on how realistic you want to be. And I don't know that it's worth being that realistic, honestly. I mean, what is it? Some of my favorite paintings are, some of my favorite painters and some of my favorite paintings of my favorite painters and some of my own favorite paintings aren't, anywhere in the realm of realistic colors. And sometimes they can't be, right? Like, I um James Gurney and Nicholas Uribe and Jeremy Mann, sometimes, they paint with like limited palettes where like you don't even have the option of painting realistic colors because you don't have realistic colors in your palette. You can't mix them. There's like no, it doesn't matter, right? Like they're just, it doesn't matter. So some like, so sometimes what's it called? The emphasis on getting the colors right and realistic colors and all that stuff. I understand why, but I think that um there's levels, right? Like and there's like when you're starting out, there's being able to accomplish those things, and then once you can, then it becomes this question of like, okay, great, I can do this. Now, do I even want to, or what do I actually want to do and say and so on? Anyways. Oh, Michael, I meant to ask you. You said your kid's an artist. Did you say? Did I miss it? Did you say that you're? I know you're an artist. Did you say your parents were also artists? Did I? Am I misremembering it? Or I probably am. I'm just. There's a lot of when streaming. Sometimes it's a lot of stuff going on at once, and my brain just scatters a little. So apologies. But yeah, no, going back to that conversation, I don't really have artists in my family. I wish I did. I'm so envious of the people. Like I know so many, I've heard or know so many, I've read, you know, the accounts of so many artists who grew up with parents who were artists, and it sounds like a magical experience, in some ways. Um, Especially when they turn out to be artists, because then they get to like, they get so much experience from their parents as they're growing up, Your father was a local artist in our town, wrote some books too. Interesting. My mom has always been into writing, and I am horrendous at writing. Um, so that was one of those talents that never it didn't get passed down. And oh, my uncle did get into I have an uncle who was into photography, still is, and but he never like became a photographer, but he was always interested in it, and he also at one point got into stained glass, like making stained glass windows and stuff like that, which is cool. Um, but there's definitely like some kind of artistic, inclination there. It's just he never, I don't know that he ever like pursued it that seriously, but there's definitely something there. Uh, Michael says, well, you're an excellent artist and very good speaking on your videos. Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. Uh, I try. But yeah, writing has never been my thing. Um, yeah. I'm I feel like I'm lucky I can read at all because I'm I'm dyslexic, and for a while like I didn't know if that would even be you know, something like, I'm not saying that I didn't know if I would be actually able to read, but like, you know, like there are some people who literally can't. It's like it's so bad they can't. Luckily, it's not that bad for me, but yeah, it was just one of those things as a kid. But thank you. I appreciate the compliment. I'm working on a video. Actually, I'm working on a video. I was working on it right before I started streaming. I was trying to I was trying to do the audio like real quick before the stream started, and I decided not to, to just not rush it and go back to it afterwards. But yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Appreciate the compliment. So I'm not. There is something I'm going to talk about right now because it kind of like tangentially kind of connects to this. But to be clear, and I'm saying this in advance so that I don't get any, because I am not fishing for compliments here. I'm being very, very clear about this. Um, but it touches on what you're saying about like being good at talking, on my videos, because I always had this, when I started it, I was worried and still am that I'm not going to have anything to talk about. And the worry is that, you know, um, I won't have anything to talk about and that no one will care about my perspective on things, right? And it ties into this idea that, like, I feel personally, I often feel like I'm a very boring person, right? And like I said, I'm not fishing for compliments. This is very much a like one of those things where it's just like the way I think a lot of people feel this way because in some manner because it's our perspective, right? Like, of course, things you've done, like your life is very normal because it's just your life, so I've heard stories from other people, and I'm going to switch over to talking about other people because um, it's not self-aggrandizing, but I've talked to other people who they will claim they have not lived very exciting lives, and then they tell you about the craziest stories and the things that they've gone through, and you're like, this could literally be like a novel or a mystery book or like all those things, and but to them it's just like, yeah, that's just kind of how it was, and you're like, that's insane that that happened, that's how it was, and that you went through that. And I try and remember that and keep that in mind because I do think that is something that applies to most people in the sense of like, yeah, to me, everything might have been very regular or normal or not, whatever. But that doesn't mean that other people have that experience or will see it that way. And for everyone who wants to like share their own art and they feel that way, it applies to them as well. So, this is all a very roundabout way of saying that like people who feel that way should try and, uh, share their stuff anyways, and keep in mind that, you know, not everyone, like, not everyone is going to see it that way, even if you do. But it ties into the videos in that sense because, like, yeah, I was like, man, I'm trying to, like, I'm taking inspiration from Nicholas Uribe, and it's like, how on earth am I ever going to, compare to Nicholas Uribe? And I don't, we have completely different lives and very different perspectives on a lot of things. As much as I love him and I love his artwork, totally different lives. So, you know, totally different approach to things. And it's just the way it is. Um, I definitely don't have the art history knowledge that he has, which, you know, I feel like very few people do. But surprisingly, I think this is something that a lot of people also aren't aware of. Sometimes having less knowledge in particular areas for a very particular, um, not instance, but in a particular way can be a good thing. And what I mean by that is I'll never, I never want to advocate for less knowledge, but when people teach, things, uh, one thing that is very hard and separates like really good teachers from, not very good teachers is that we learn the way we learn things is we learn things and then we compound those things that we learn into like, you know, like in our brain smaller steps. And so it's very hard to remember what it was like to not have it compound into those steps, and what the experience is like for someone who doesn't have your level of experience, right? And it's very, very difficult. And so sometimes when you're closer to, like, if you're teaching people and you're closer to their skill level, just a little separated, it sometimes can make it easier to teach them versus someone who's like a master at something in particular. Um, so sometimes conveying information or knowledge in that way can be helpful. So sometimes less knowledge can be, less experience or less knowledge can be better to a degree in a very, very specific way. Just have to be very clear on that because I hate the fighting intellectualism type of thing because I don't stand by that at all. But yeah, anyways. Michael says our painted lives, LOL. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely. Our Nicholas Uribe's Our Painted Lives was the it's his YouTube channel, and that's where, like, I was who I was, taking inspiration from. And yeah, Michael says we are all different. Absolutely, we are all different. Absolutely. Mm, I'm not a fan of that. I don't like that fold there. I'm gonna get rid of it, and then I'll have to look up some reference because I don't like how this part is looking. I'll have to find some reference specifically for that before I can finish that part. It's fine. There's more stuff to work on. I still need to work on her face a little more, but I'm really happy with where the face is at the moment. Not like for a finish, but just for, the moment. And I feel like it's at the place now where all I need to do is go in and finish the face. Like everything's kind of right. It's in the right place. Everything's good. I just need to go in and put the finish on it. And I don't want to do that until I finish more of the painting, because I usually leave the face for the end, or relatively speaking, for the end. I know, I'm sorry, I know I repeat myself a lot on these streams, but used to not be the case. I used to do the face first. You've ever seen those? A lot of people who do online stuff, you see it a lot. They do the face first, get it like perfect, and then they do everything else. Or they do the eye first, get it perfect, and then do everything else. My perspective on that has completely flipped. And that's mostly thanks to an article I read of how John Singer Sargent supposedly did his paintings. I don't even know if it was true, but supposedly that's how he approached it. In case you don't know, there's an article, like it was not an article, it was a letter that he had supposedly written to one of his students or something, or can't remember. It's either a letter he wrote her, or she was recanting what what it was like in his class, or she was just taking notes. I can't remember. I'm trying to remember, but I really can't at the moment. I think it was his assistant, and she was like, she had wrote down like what it was like. Yeah. Michael says, I noticed a lot of your work that you are very good at hands and arms, which I struggle with. First of all, thank you. Yeah, hands and arms are, well, hands more than arms, but fun, a lot of fun. I like painting both. I prefer hands over arms if I have to pick, but yeah, they kind of go hand in hand. So, you end up doing them both a lot. Um, yeah, I don't, I'm trying to think if I have any like, you know, what's it called? Any tidbits, or, you know, anything like that to give you to improve, to help you if you wanted to improve on hands or arms. Um, I, I do actually. I can think of a few things that I could recommend. It's understand that I am giving very generic recommendations if I say anything, because I'm not looking at any of your paintings. However, if you do want to put anything in the Discord, there is a place specifically for feedback. You're welcome to drop something there, and I can give you much more like personalized feedback there. However, if you don't, that's fine. But my general recommendations to anyone who wants to get better at hands or arms. I'm going to go with some of the classics, like learning the anatomy, obviously. That always helps with just about everything. Um, you know, it's a classic for a reason, right? And then, there's the different like color variations that go on in the hands and the arms, but a lot, thanks Des, I appreciate that, but a lot more in the hands. Um, there's all the little like, depending on your skin tone, you get, different color shifts and different, you know, tonal shifts and stuff like that. Like, because the skin is so thin in certain areas, you get a lot more red. It's very similar to like the nose. And then you can also have veins. So it's very similar to the face in a lot of ways. Um, but the the thing for me that I can say, like, if I can try and point to like particular things that personally helped me, and this might not help you because you might be having, struggle with different aspects of it, of course. There's no way for me to tell, but without seeing stuff. But one thing I know I struggled with is well, there's a few things. So with hands in particular, when I'd paint them, there's a tendency to try and put all the detail in, especially in the beginning. And really, I go with very few details in the beginning, put far less information, and just kind of get the general gist of them, so you can get the solidity of them. Hey, Raiders, welcome. Oh, Carson. Carson is raiding with a party of 40. Welcome, everybody. How's it going today? How are you all doing? What were you up to today? Welcome, Raiders. Let me see if I can switch over so I can see my Twitch thing. We'll see. Hey, happy to raid. It's been a while. Yeah, it has. What have you been up to? Let me see if I can grab your Twitch account so I can share it on um, on my YouTube chat as well. Anyways, I'll get that in a minute. You were working on a personal digital piece today instead of a commission. Very nice. Anything you want to share, you're welcome to share. I know how frustrating it is. You raid and you're like, you can't show what you were just working on because like you haven't even posted it yet and so on. So I totally get that. But if there's something else you want to share, if or whatever, you're more than welcome to. Des, thank you. Des, put your Twitch in my YouTube chat so people can see your Twitch account as well. You've been using Blue Sky lately. You can share a recent drawing if that works. Yeah, absolutely, that works. I am on Blue Sky, but I'll be honest, I don't use it much. I also don't use Twitter. I basically use Instagram and barely. Yes, Des, I know my commands suck on Twitch. So for everyone who's new, welcome. I am Liad. I'm a painter, also a storyboard artist and a comic book artist and digital artist as well. But my channel is mostly around my oil paintings, and I suck at all the like Twitch things. So setting up um, the commands and everything. I'm horrible at that. Apologies. And also, I can't see the notifications. So if anybody follows, thank you. I don't get the notifications because I have like, I think it's like 7 different windows open to manage the stream and the multiple chats that I have and the reference images. So it's just too much. So I don't see them, but I do appreciate any follows, anything like that. Thank you very much. All right, let's see this piece of artwork really quick. And I can copy the link. Oh, yes, that is very safe. Okay. Oh, that's awesome. Hold on, I'm bringing it over so I can get a better look at it. Oh, that's fantastic. I shared it on my YouTube in my YouTube chat, so anyone who wants to see it can. Ah, it's really good. Man, the detail in that is just crazy. Was that inspired by anything in particular? Like, is that for a story or anything in particular? Or is it just like unrelated to anything? You know, Des says he made me a mod the other day. I guess I'd better be useful. Hey, Des, I appreciate you. I appreciate you being a mod, but you're also not obligated to do any work or anything like that as a mod. I appreciate anything you do, but you're also not obligated to do anything. Just ban people if they're being, if they're, be, you know, being out of pocket or whatever. That's the main things. uh, Carson says, nope, it was just a random sketch. Oh, nice. I know how that is. Sometimes the, random ideas just, like, um, spark something in particular. So there's a few things that it reminds me of, not directly like copies, but there's a few elements, and these things draw from other things, so it might not be directly connected, but I'm curious. Did you play Elden Ring by any chance? Um, One, did you play Elden Ring? And I would say that. And you have played Elden Ring, yeah? Nice. There's some elements of this that remind me. Never finished it though. Ah, it's a good game. It's a really good game. Yeah, I love that game. And then Princess Mononoke. There's some elements here that kind of remind me of that. Are you a fan of Mike Mignola and what is that game that what's his name is playing that what's that game that Don Lee is playing right now? Des, do you remember? Um, Never finished it. Oh yeah, you can see that. And yes, you love Mike Mignola. Yeah, yeah. There's some elements to it that kind of remind me of his stuff. Very not stylistically, but like some of the like the hair to the mask and stuff. To some of the masks. Yeah. Um, oh, what is that game he's playing right now? I'm blanking on the name. Anyways, yeah, there's a few things I can see, and like I said, a lot of these things, they're not independent either, so they tie to other things, like the staff with the rings on it. That reminds me of something from the Elden Ring expansion, but I know that that's not just an Elden Ring thing. That is a uh, what is it? Oh, I can't. I'm blanking on it. It's like a religious staff type of thing that I've seen in other places. You probably know. Yeah, I'm not telling you. You know better than me. I'm just telling you what I'm thinking of. Elden Ring took a lot of inspiration from Lord of the Rings as well. Oh, yes, for sure. For sure. And also from a ton of other cultures and lore. So it all ties, like there's a lot of tie-ins, so absolutely. Yeah. But yeah, very, very cool. I like it. I don't know how you have the patience to do that. Those that says he's playing Death's Door. That's it, Death's Door. There's some elements of the design stuff from that game that kind of reminds me of this. But yeah, oh, very, very cool. I like it. I don't know how you have the patience to do all that, all those feathers and stuff, honestly. That's crazy. Carson says, "Oh yeah, there's a lot of Viking and Northern European folklore too in Elden Ring." Yeah, absolutely. Well, part of it's an interesting combination because they had what's his name, J.R.R. Tolkien, work with them on Elden Ring. Um, so there's a lot of tie-ins. Yeah, it's thanks to the ADHD and the hyperfocus and time blindness. It's funny. Yeah. Okay, you followed on Blue Sky. That says I followed on Blue Sky to find my password. Yeah. I uh I don't use I don't use Blue Sky a lot. I just you know I also don't use Kara a lot. I want to. There's just too many apps. I'm just not. I struggle to keep on top of everything. Yeah, but yeah. But yeah, welcome Raiders and anyone who is interested in art and painting specifically, but not only. We talk anything art related. You're welcome to join the Discord. I have a feedback corner where you can drop stuff if you want some feedback on your artwork and people talk about art and stuff like that. Obviously, my Discord. It's not the most active Discord in the world, so you're not going to get pinged all the time. But yeah, you know, join if that sounds interesting, I guess. Carson says, yeah, there's too many. I've basically abandoned all the others and just concentrate on Blue Sky. Yeah, see, I've done the same, but it's mostly I mostly use YouTube and Discord, and I guess like traditional social media. I guess still Instagram. I think because like yeah, uh, I haven't deleted my account, but I refuse, and I will use it for private messages for certain people because that's where they are. But I refuse to use Twitter or X. Uh, I will not use that platform to just as a general rule. The only reason I don't delete my account is because I don't want someone to take it or something, and I want access to the people who are like, they're just there and that's the only place they are, kind of thing. But I don't use it and I don't sign in. Basically, it's so toxic. Here's the thing. Okay, here's the thing about Twitter. I was having a fantastic time on Twitter right before it was purchased because I hadn't used it in forever, and then I joined and I got connected to all these artists. And there's a lot of people who are like fighting back against AI and dealing with a lot of that stuff. And I really made some great connections and met some really cool people. And then Elon Musk bought it, and fine, it became more toxic, it became trashier, like it had more issues. Fine, whatever. But after his little salute issue, I am not going to support that. I'm sorry. I don't care what people think. That's just an area where I will not do it. Carson says, yeah, I dropped X despite having 7K followers on there. Yeah, I chose to leave it, and I'm nearly at that amount now on Blue Sky, and mostly just this year. So it's been much better. Nice. Yeah, yeah. Carson says, LOL, salute issue is one way to put it. Yeah, well, I'm being, uh, I don't know. Yeah, I don't want the, different, whatever automation things to flag me for anything. You know what I mean? But the way I phrased it was, you will not see me there on X anymore. So that's all I'm gonna say about that. I generally, here's the thing. Um, I try to be very positive. I have family members who are on all sides of the political aisle, and I try not to bring politics into this space. Not saying that art should be apolitical, because no, but not in this context. It's not about that. Uh, and I think I don't think it's appropriate. But there are some edge cases and some things that are too far that I will I will be very clear about my stance on things. It's been a real weird time lately in the last couple of years, so you know it's whatever. But yeah, but that's great about Blue Sky. Uh, I've heard mixed things about Blue Sky. It's good to hear some more positive stuff about it. So yeah, I really wish Kara like exploded, because there's there are some features on Kara that no other app has that I love, and I don't use it enough. I like just never log on and forget, and it is what it is. It's been wonderful for me, and the community is great. That's fantastic. Maybe I'll make an effort to, I'll try and make an effort to be there more. Most of my effort's been on YouTube, though. I'll say that. Yeah, I agree. I should post more on Kara, but I just forget it exists. Same. I mean, to be fair, I forget that even that Instagram exists half the time. So I'm not, great at any of it. But yeah, the what is it? The feature I love in Kara is that you can have your regular posts, and then you can have special posts that go into your portfolio. So I love that, because that was one of the things on Instagram, like, that I had an issue with, which was like, I stopped posting a lot of random, silly, just like life stuff there, because it was, it was taking away from the portfolio aspect of it, right? So then you have to make two Instagram accounts. I can barely keep up on one, let alone two, right? So it's like, yeah. And so I wish Blue Sky or anyone, implemented that kind of thing where it's like, oh yeah, you can have, you know, a um, a portfolio and social media, and they can be the same, but they're also separate enough that you can, like, you don't have to feel bad about posting. Not that I would do this, but if you did, you wouldn't have to feel bad about posting like food pics on your, on your account, because it wouldn't take away from the portfolio if that's what you wanted to do. I'm not that person, but just as a generalization. Carson says, "Yeah, for sure. I do like that. Yeah, that's one element I really appreciate. But you know, this, by the way, for anyone who's curious, is a this is actually a VTuber model that I'm trying to paint as a very realistic person. Um, and usually I do more, like, I'll say, like, what I'd call more realism without the like fantasy element of a VTuber model. But I thought it'd be fun to mix it up a bit. And I am having a lot of fun with it. I will say that. I've been enjoying the process. I, that is one thing when people raid. Sometimes there's this, like, you want to do. kind of a show and tell, like, here, look at all my stuff for the people who are new, but also it's like I don't really want to do that either because it feels weird to do sometimes. It's a funny thing. I also feel bad. I never raid anybody because I'm multi-stream and I haven't figured out how to do that. We can see your stuff on the wall behind you. Oh, that's right. And I do have the slideshow going too. So, yeah, that's true. I forget about that. Thank you, Des. I appreciate that very much. You can promote me. Thank you. I appreciate it. I know I keep talking about this, but I'm actually planning on opening up commissions. I'm actually working on that right now, off stream, setting up my commission page and everything. So anyone, if that sounds interesting to anybody, uh, sign up for my newsletter, I guess, or follow me on Instagram. Carson, you said you've been doing commissions lately. What kind of commissions do you do, if you don't mind me asking? And where can people, is Blue Sky the best place to approach you for commissions if people are interested? And also, I know you just finished streaming, so if you need to go, I totally get that. I know how exhausting it can be and how like after a stream sometimes it's just like you either have something you have to do or you're just so tired you don't want to keep talking. Sorry you had to run to the washroom wasn't I was asking you what kind of commissions you've been doing lately and where can people contact you if they want to commission from you? Because you said you took a break recently from doing like on stream today from commissions, but that makes it sound like you do commissions quite often. So a lot of t-shirt designs and stuff lately. Nice. I was also saying like no, don't don't feel obligated to hang out. I know how it is after a stream. You want to like when you raid, you want to both stay and go at the same time. So I totally get that. A lot of art for Twitch streamers. Nice. That's cool. Usually get folks to reach out to me on Discord for work. I'm thankful that that these days you've had no shortage of work. It's basically all been word of mouth since 2016. Oh, 2012 actually. Nice. That's fantastic. Good for you, man. You feel very lucky for that. I mean, yeah, I totally get that. You know, it's I want to give you props for it because I don't think it's just luck. You know, it's a lot of it's due to your skill and your, you know, your work ethic and how much, you know, how much effort you put into things. But I also, in general, recognize how all of our successes, everyone who is successful, there is always a degree of luck combined with it. You know, some people, the balance is way off in one direction or the other, but most people, it's kind of a hand in hand type of thing to a degree. Like you, the luck only plays so much. The all the other things have to carry it, but without that bit of luck, you never, you know, you wouldn't have been able to use those efforts and those skills and so on. So, you know, usually that's the case. Some people are just like they just get a career that just spills into their hands, sometimes against their will, and you're just like, okay, that's just not fair. But you know, that's not most people. Carson says, I appreciate that. And yeah, I agree. It's a lot of factors. Yeah. This is I'd not like to rely on commissions. I'm plagued by demand avoidance. I don't think I've heard that term before. Demand avoidance. I'm actually working on a commission right now for a like an illustration commission for someone for a what's it called? An indie writer for a book cover. But yeah, that which you know once again that word of mouth played a big part of it. I met her at a art event, and you know that's how it came up. So yeah. But I don't take a ton of commissions, although that's about to change. But yeah, I always I always have so I you know working as a like comic book artist, illustrator, storyboard artist, it's very different depending on which group, which kind of lane you're going through, how commissions is like, and so on. Yeah. Okay, you're gonna grab some food. Happy to, I got to raid and share your work with folks. Oh, thank you so much, and I really do appreciate the raid. That was very kind of you. Thank you, and enjoy your. I'm assuming dinner, so enjoy your dinner, or whatever it might be. But yeah, and I will catch you around. But yeah, it was cool talking with you. It's been forever, so it was good. I'm glad you were rated. And I think I'm trying to like go back in in my mind to before you rated and think I was I was talking about painting hands and some general advice for that. I definitely got sidetracked, so I'm going to try and go back to that briefly um, because one thing, well, because I'm working on the arms right now, one thing that I really um, and this goes more for painting than it does for drawing. But one thing that like really bugs me when I see this in other people's paintings, and it's something I try really hard not to bring into my paintings, is you see like when people paint arms, a lot of times they have this, how can I describe it? It's the texture of the arm looks like melted wax to me. It, not very melted, just slightly melted. It's like too smooth and there's no shape to it. There's just something really off about it. I don't know how exactly to describe it. I need to keep an eye out for it and just grab a screenshot one day when I come across it. Be like, this is what I'm always trying to avoid. But yeah, there's a particular look that I definitely try to avoid when it comes to painting skin in general, but you see it a lot on arms and legs because they're long tubes. And I think part of it is that people don't paint a lot of anatomy into those areas. So, especially when you got like, if you're painting like uh, you know, people who aren't, superheroes, people don't put in a lot of anatomy into those areas. If they're not particularly muscular, but that's not really, I don't think that's an accurate way of doing things. There's a ton of really subtle things that go into it. You can't always do all the subtle things because, like sometimes it's too small and you just can't. But I do think that there's, you know, more to it and the different colors and textures that you can put in to kind of get away from that like melted wax look is good. I don't know if that makes sense to anybody, but it's just one of those things that like, I don't know. I've seen it so many times and it just, I don't like it. But yeah, reference is always super helpful, which I don't have any for this particularly, but yeah, reference is always very helpful in general, but for hands specifically. Luckily, you always have your own hands to use for reference, but be careful with that because some people have slightly unique hands, or maybe we all do, but sometimes you can see the same hands over and over again in some artists' work. All right, I hear bells, lots of bells right now. And that's because it's getting close to 6:30, which is dinner time for the cats. So they are all like gargoyles outside of my room right now, waiting for me to feed them. Because of that, I don't know if I'll be able to grab any of them because usually they go running as soon as I show up because they want to run to the food bowl. But let's see if I can go grab one real quick. Let's see, because I hear the bells. I know they're here. I hear the jingles. But you see, Dresden's just running away from me. Dresden, why are you running? Yep, just running away from me. Does not want to be caught. Ah, that little boy. It's because, like I said, it's getting close to dinner time, so they want me to just go downstairs and feed them. I'm actually surprised they're not coming in here. Usually they come in and like, you know, like go through my legs repeatedly trying to get me to to come downstairs and feed them. We'll see. That's why I wear the gloves, by the way. So when they do come in, I can take the gloves off and have clean hands to pick them up. Okay. This is, I mean, I think this painting is really coming together, but I do think that there's a particular part of the painting that is far less developed than the rest. So I need to address that. My art teachers used to always say that like the painting or the drawing should all kind of come together all at once, which of course is impossible because, you know, like it's just not how things work. However, you can get close. Like it's not that everything comes together completely at once, but you can what's it called? Uh, Mostly have it all kind of come together at the same rate, roughly. The bigger it is, the less that happens, of course, but you know, the idea is that you don't finish a part of the painting completely and then just have another part completely not addressed kind of thing, more than actually be able to bring it all to a finish at the same degree all at once. But you can get close. I don't know what the significance of the bell is on her outfit, but she's wearing this huge bell and like a few smaller bells. I don't know why, but yeah. For anyone, by the way, this is random, but the bells reminded me of this. If anyone has seen um, K-pop, what is it? K-pop Monster Hunters. If anyone's seen that movie, um, there's some YouTube videos that go into like some of the, you know, um, like art inspiration that they used for that. Some of it's from like some of it's from the studio itself or from the artist itself. Some are people who just do like, video essay type of things on it. It's really interesting. I found all of that very, very interesting. In a way, almost more interesting than the movie itself. Only because the story is like I don't know. The story, I don't want to say it was bad because it wasn't. It was just, I think it was clearly made for kids, which is fine. It just that, it is what it is. The design and stuff on it, I did like. And, the YouTube videos go into more information about the designs and the history of some of the designs and where they took inspiration and so on. And I thought that was really interesting. But the reason the bells reminded me of that is because the characters have these little tassels as part of their character design, and there's, some significance to those. And so that's why I thought about it. So if anyone's seen it, I recommend watching those videos. If you haven't seen it and you like animation and stuff like that, I recommend seeing it and then going to see those videos. If you like, design, animation, um, I guess, what would it be? I guess folklore, but more like art history and stuff like that. Yeah. So yeah, that's all. It just reminded me of that, or made me think of it. So thought I'd share that. So I am not an expert at painting reflective things. Not that this necessarily has to be like chrome reflective, but still there should be some more reflection in it kind of thing, I think. But definitely metals, chromes, stuff like that, there's very specific way of approaching it, which I'm not necessarily an expert at. So I'm going to fake it to a degree, but I know that like if I ever needed to do, if it needed to be more of a central piece, I definitely have to go get reference for a lot of it. So because I have so many screens open and I have like just too much kind of going on to be able to keep track of things. Like I said, I don't see when people follow me, which sucks because the notification is nice to like say, oh, thank you to whoever, So I feel bad sometimes that I don't say that, and I don't acknowledge those things. But the flip side to that is I remember when I got rated. I mean, a party of 40 is big for me. But I remember years ago, when I only streamed on Twitch, I got rated by someone with a party of 300. And that was quite the thing for me when I was like, I think I was streaming to like 10 people and suddenly I had a party of 300. And at that time I wasn't multi-streaming, so I could see, you know, I could see the like follows and all that stuff, but I could also see my viewer count, which totally worked against me in that instance because I was just like a little stunned by the 300 you know, follower and didn't quite know how to handle that. So I do think sometimes it's better to not even have the stream count up, so I can't even tell like how many people are watching. This is just a generalized thing. I think it's good sometimes. And then on YouTube, it's so weird because for a while I was getting like 300 views on a live stream while it was live, but those views would only last for like a couple of seconds. So I have no idea what was going on there. So whatever. At some point, I was just like, I don't quite understand how this works, and I just gave up on trying to figure it out. I just assumed people would come in and then be like, oh, this is boring, and leave. But it could be bots or something. I don't know. One thing I hate about using like painting these colors is when anytime you use a lot of phthalo in your mix, it just does not want to leave the brush. Very annoying. Oh, you all can't hear this, but the cats are getting into it. I have three cats and they mostly don't really fight. They play fight, you know, because cats are cats. Yeah, food time. Yeah, absolutely. They get more agitated around food time for sure. But one of my cats, she's very vocal anytime any like about anything. Misu, she's just so even if nothing is really happening, she'll hiss and you know and stuff like that. So she makes it sound a lot worse than it actually is. Very dramatic. I um some of you have seen her on stream and she's hissed like at me at my face like you know and she won't do anything but she's just very vocal and dramatic. But yeah, it is getting to be that time. I also have to think about this painting as far as like how much detail I want to put into every element of it, because I definitely don't want to overdo it with the detail. You know, I have to finish her face and her hand. Those are like the 2 points I have to put more time in, but they're very close to finish at this point. They need more work, but they're not, far from it. The question is, how much time am I going to actually put into the rest of it? That's always the hard part, especially in this one, because it's like, you know, um, the model is so simple, relatively speaking. Yeah, that needs a little bit of work. I messed that up. Oh well. But yeah, I'm really enjoying this overall. Just the like combination, of the two. I remember years ago, I tried to do a painting when I first started oil painting. I tried to do an oil painting of a fictional character, and so I drew it up, and I could easily do the drawing, but the design and everything. But then when I tried to copy it over into oils and do it, I just could not. For some reason, it was at the time, I think I just wasn't good enough at painting in oils to be able to pull something like that off, which is very interesting to have the contrast to now kind of thing. Um, because I've done paintings, digitally at that point. I've done all this other stuff, but it's interesting. I don't know. I have to think about it. Like, what was it? Just like a brain thing? Like, just was it like I didn't have the experience with oils? I don't know. I'll think about it. Maybe make a video about that. Anyways. Anyways, it is though time to end the stream. Like I said, I don't raid because I haven't figured it out with the two with the dual system things. It's just I too much technical stuff. So yeah. Cassandra says, have a good night. Oh, thank you, Cassandra. And thanks for hanging out. I appreciate it. And everyone else who was here hanging out, Michael and Samaj, Des, of course, Carson, thank you for the raid, and everyone who stuck around after the raid. I appreciate it. And welcome. And if you join the Discord or follow my YouTube channel, welcome everyone. And I will be back on Sunday. Yes, Des says see you on Sunday. Yes, Sunday. I stream Sunday and Wednesday, so I will be back on Sunday. Sunday afternoon, Central Time. Trying to think, yeah, Sundays afternoon Central Time. But yeah, thank you everybody. I appreciate it, and hopefully I'll have a new video out by tomorrow or Friday at the latest. That's the fingers crossed. That's the plan. All right. Have a good night, everybody. Des says I'll teach you how to raid. Okay. Thanks, Des. I appreciate it.